Well, we also have Mr. R. Gandhi, former Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India, joining us. Mr. Gandhi, can I ask you, just for your opening remarks on the policy, how would you assess it? Would you give it a thumbs up, or are you a little wary, especially given that inflation is picking up and there are talks about a K-shaped recovery, which means the bottom of the pyramid has to be taken care of? Mr. Gandhi?
Thank you, Maithili. I will give thumbs up for two reasons. One is that at this second wave, when we are in the midst of second phase of pandemic, naturally all the market segments and in general the country as a whole wants certain certainty on the policy, accommodative policy that is provided by the Reserve Bank of India. So that reassuring words, both in decisions and words, are forthcoming through this policy announcement. That is the first reason why I give thumbs up, number one. Number two, yes, you did mention about the inflation trending up a bit, but still it is within the policy corridor. And again, in the times of uncertainty, to tackle inflation, yes, that will be the primary responsibility of the Reserve Bank of India, MPC. And still, because it is their projections and the current inflation are well within the bandwidth. So naturally, while they will be watchful, but the change in policy stance just because of this current numbers being around 5 or expected numbers being around 5% of CPI, that doesn't hold good. So that's why knee-jerk reaction was not there from the Reserve Bank of India. That is my second reason for why I'm giving thumbs up.
Except that inflation, average inflation through all of last year was 6.2%, over the upper end of the band, and for consecutive months it remained well over 6%. But I think I'm definitely in a minority here, and maybe I'm taking full refuge of the Supreme Court ruling that journalist criticism of government cannot be taken amiss. So maybe I'm taking refuge under that, because now we are also joined by Anantha Nageswaran, member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Anant, I'm pretty sure you'll also give a thumbs up to the policy. Would you, Anant?
No, under the circumstances, yes, I would definitely second whatever Mr. Gandhi said. I don't envy the policymakers in the current situation, whether they are in the government or in the central bank. There is considerable band of uncertainty around any baseline projections, and anybody can drive a truck through it. You can say it will be much above 4%, and therefore they should be tightening. And somebody else can say that given extremely low capacity utilization, uncertain demand outlook, policy should remain accommodative. Otherwise, banks could simply hike the interest rates they charge to NBFCs, who are the only ones who are lending. So I think on balance, I would say I'm very glad that the MPC had a unanimous vote on this, both with respect to the current monetary policy decision and on the accommodative stance to be maintained going forward. So I have no complaints.
And Anant, hi, this is Ruchi Bhatia. Let me, understand from you, given the fact that we're seeing the RBI slashing the growth forecast downwards to 9.5% as against 10.5%, that was their projection earlier. Going forward, given the fact that we do see a lot of risks, one of them, of course, is a third wave of the COVID pandemic. And besides that, the tasks that lie ahead of us in terms of vaccinating the entire country, do you believe that this 9.5 is well within our range, or do you see more risks coming in, given the fact that there are a lot of unknowns that lie ahead of us?
So, as I mentioned to Maithili just a couple of minutes ago, I think there is still a considerable band of uncertainty around these numbers, but I would still think 9.5 or 9 or 10 is closer to the baseline that one would expect. And of course, as you correctly put it, a lot depends on whether we get a third wave or not. I think sometimes experts could also be overcompensating for their error in not predicting the scale, intensity, and the speed of second wave. So we don't know whether the third wave would come, if so, with what intensity, etc. But I mean, right now, everybody knows the what of things, which is vaccination, fiscal stimulus, taking care of the bottom half of the K of the income class, etc. The question is how, and how do you gather the resources? So 9.5% is not something that I would consider as excessively optimistic.
Trevor, my line is...
Okay, I think for a moment we've lost Ruchi. So let me just now move over to Pranav Sen. Rob, do you think that the RBI focus should shift sometime later, at least in the year, to inflation, particularly given the fact that its policy so far hasn't really moved the needle as far as growth is concerned, and monetary policy acts with a long lag? So what do you think would be an appropriate time for the RBI to act on the inflation front?
Well, as far as let's begin with the issue of lag. The lag is not written in stone. Much depends on the pace at which people react. I think we are today in a situation where the transmission of monetary policy has become much, much quicker than it used to be earlier under normal circumstances. And therefore, I don't think we need to worry too much about the long lags that used to exist. But having said that, the point is that RBI consistently, I think, has been maintaining that it is necessary for fiscal policy to start picking up the burden. That still hasn't happened to the desired extent. Now, in a situation like that, the RBI has been forced into a situation where its principal role as the controller of inflation has had to be put on the backside. Now, as Mr. Gandhi rightly said, that the inflation, the CPI rate is still within the band and may stay there. Although my guess is that it is not going to stay there for very long, because as far as rural India is concerned, I think we really don't know what's happening in terms of the disease progress. The numbers that we are seeing in terms of the turning points in the second wave are essentially emanating from urban areas. What is happening in rural areas, we don't know. Testing levels are extremely low. But the impact of that can actually be pretty severe. Already we are starting to get messages from the mandis that mandi arrivals are not happening. And if this continues, then food inflation can become a threat. And certainly the RBI has to keep its arsenal ready to tackle that challenge. But the fact of the matter is that if it does so, in the absence of a strong fiscal intervention, we may actually go well below the 9.5% target that everybody seems to be agreeing on. Because unless RBI then says we are simply going to ignore inflation in its totality, which I don't think they can and should do.
Right, let me, just delve on that point a little deeper. Dr. Gandhi, the RBI governor today did say that there are impulses of growth that we do see, but given the fact that we are seeing the rural India also in deep distress, and the governor today said that there is a need for policy support from all sides, is he really making a case for the baton now to be picked up by North Bloc? There is enough that has been done on the monetary policy side. It's now on to some fiscal support as well.
It's like this, naturally, both policies, monetary policy and fiscal policy, together will have to tackle the situation. It is not exclusive only of monetary policy or the fiscal policy. As far as the Reserve Bank is concerned, they have come out with their own measures within their own policy ambit and the toolkits that they have. Within that, they have announced, and they clearly find that will be insufficient. That's a key message, that monetary policy alone cannot do things, and especially with reference to growth. Growth impulses will always have to be primarily from the fiscal policy. That's the expression which the governor has mentioned in his statement. And yes, it is also needed, yes.
Okay, on that note, we do have to take a short break, but let me also thank all the guests joining in, Pranab Sen, Dr. Gandhi, as well as Anantha Nageswaran. Many thanks for joining in and, of course, helping us make sense of the RBI monetary policy announcements today. Let's get into this short break. We will be back with our coverage on the other side as well.